Chapter 1849. Unkillable? You are miserable. King Arthur ignored Hela's words. He only believes in the edge of his sword, and there is no one he cannot kill. At most, they are difficult to kill, or they use some special abilities to create the illusion that they are unkillable. King Arthur looked around. This was a desolate, ancient battlefield with broken battle flags everywhere and broken corpses on the ground. Those corpses were in human form, probably because the administrators simulated the future scenes through their ideology. The battlefield is very suitable for the charge of this Night King. It's a pity that he didn't have a war horse as his mount. But no horse is always better than having one. King Arthur smiled. He held the sword in his hand and charged towards Hela again. The corners of Hela's mouth curled up into a scarlet smile. It seems that you don't believe what I said, but unfortunately, you can't defeat me here. I didn't lie about this. She stretched out her slender, white index finger, and blood dripped from her fingertips like a spring, spilling onto the ancient battlefield. Soon, the sticky blood turned into a huge swamp under her feet and then soaked into the ground. The corpses that had already rotted and even turned into bones were soaked in blood and then slowly stood up from the ground. Thousands of zombie puppets stood in front of King Arthur. They looked at King Arthur with their empty eyes and charged towards him. Break. King Arthur only needs one sword. The king's power is invincible, and he can smash thousands of zombie puppets with one sword. No one could stop him. He leaped forward, and anything that blocked his way was shattered. When Hela saw the scene, she couldn't help but take 2 steps back. You are worthy of being King Arthur. If I met you in the outside world, I would have no choice but to run away. But here, you can't do anything to me. That was the existence of the mere Britannia archipelago, which could rival the entire European alliance. After the advent of the world, a fierce war broke out between them. King Arthur led the entire Knights of the Round Table and was able to compete with the gods of Asgard. Even their main god, Zeus, suffered at the hands of King Arthur. Hela knew all this, but she didn't care. Until King Arthur rushed in front of her like a hurricane and then slashed her body with a sword. The surging power and the extreme oppression brought by Wang's authority almost suffocated her. She tried her best to resist this force, but even though they were at the same level, she was still killed by King Arthur with one sword. Her body exploded directly, and the surging energy made it impossible for her to maintain her shape, turning into a blood rain that splashed in all directions. King Arthur did not stop after this sword strike. He took out some special energy bombs for attacking Inhumans from his body and threw them towards the area where the blood was splattered. This kind of bomb will explode with huge energy, and the temperature generated instantly can reach over 6,000 degrees Celsius. What King Arthur has to do is to evaporate the blood and kill Hela completely. Boom! The explosion was deafening, echoing throughout the ancient battlefield. However, after the explosion, the ball of blood appeared again on the battlefield, and then Hela's body slowly condensed from the river of blood. Hee, I told you, you can't kill me here. No matter how many times you try, the result will be the same. Don't waste your energy. There was a crazy smile on Hela's lips. I am the god who rules over death. King Arthur's eyes were fixed on the entire battlefield, and he saw everything that had just happened. What he was sure of was that the explosion had evaporated a large amount of blood and killed the cells in the blood. In other words, the so-called rebirth through dripping blood is just an illusion. Hela's resurrection does not depend on this blood. Otherwise, even if he could be resurrected, his combat effectiveness would drop sharply due to the loss of a large amount of blood. Is the famous Bloody Mary in Europe just disguised by blood? King Arthur held the sword in his hand and whispered, So, what is her real method of resurrection based on? The information currently available is too little to make any judgment. But so what? He raised the sword in his hand, pointing the tip directly at Hela. There was no fear on Hela's face. Instead, she laughed arrogantly at King Arthur. She opened her arms and exposed her naked chest, as if inviting King Arthur to pierce her chest with his invincible broken steel sword and try to take her life. I've told you, all your efforts are in vain. I absolutely cannot be killed here. King Arthur accepted her invitation and stabbed her with his sword. Hela is resurrected again. King Arthur continued to use his abilities to fight the army of corpses while killing Hela. The strength of Hela lies in her resurrection, but on the front battlefield, she is completely unable to withstand the offensive of the king's authority and the broken steel sword, so she is killed one after another. However, every time she fell, she would get up again. King Arthur killed her 100 times, but after she recovered, she seemed to be fine. Every time King Arthur killed her, he would carefully observe her resurrection process. However, no matter how he tried, no matter how he crushed every cell of Hela, he could not prevent Hela's resurrection. As for himself, his special energy was also being consumed rapidly. King Arthur's eyes grew darker. He knew that continuing this meaningless killing would only destroy his body. Hela's body condensed from the blood, and her expression became more and more wanton and arrogant as she looked at King Arthur. Well, don't you still believe that you can't kill me? As a knight, you should choose an honorable death. King Arthur looked calmly and began to think about the successive battle scenes. There is no such thing as an unkillable person in this world. If she really had such a terrifying ability, she would definitely not be just the third person in Asgard. So there must be a flaw in her ability. Wait, after she entered this world, she kept telling me that she could never be killed here. You can't be killed here. Here? Suddenly, King Arthur seemed to understand something and looked at Hela. The body you have here is just a part of your original body? Only in this way can we reasonably explain why Hela is so confident. In that case, no matter what King Arthur did, he would not be able to kill Hela completely. Because she has the ability of blood rebirth, she can be resurrected by that part of her body from the outside world. According to the rules of the trial field, the trial will only end when one party dies. Therefore, she is really in an undefeated position. Hela was stunned for a moment, and then the smile on her lips deepened. As expected of King Arthur, he saw through the crux of the matter so quickly. She opened her slender and soft arms. I have an ability called Wangling Box, which can remove my heart from my body and hide it in an absolutely secret place. As long as my heart is not broken, I can never be killed. Even if you cut off my hands and feet and crush every cell in my body, I will be resurrected and quickly restore the lost parts of my body. How is it, Lord King Arthur? Do you understand your situation now? King Arthur understood his situation, and his heart sank slowly. Such an opponent, coupled with the rules of the trial field, is simply a bug. How on earth is he going to win? Or is he going to stop here? Hela raised her hand, and a large number of corpses on the ancient battlefield around her staggered to their feet, holding broken weapons and surrounding King Arthur. She would not give King Arthur time to think, because no matter what he did next, it would just be a waste of time. It would be better to do more interesting things. Being able to torture King Arthur, who is famous in Europe, was enough to make her feel happy. King Arthur, if you are still not satisfied, feel free to pierce my body with your majestic sword. Her scarlet tongue licked her lips seductively, and her eyes were full of confusion and mockery. King Arthur did not fall into despair. He looked at the army of corpses in front of him and kept his mind calm enough. He couldn't give up like this. If I failed only the third trial, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? There is no ability in this world that is flawless. Even this seemingly buggy ability must have a way to break it. I will observe carefully and search slowly. Bailey Chongqing didn't expect that he could advance to the second round of battle. He was lucky, as the opponent he encountered in the first battle was actually a member of Team Tianjin. After a long and fierce battle, he finally killed the opponent with his powerful physical strength. However, during the second battle, when he saw the young man with long black hair that covered half of his face, he began to feel uneasy. Because Zhang Yi said that guy was suspected to be from Qinling Mountains. Chongqing didn't say anything extra when he saw Bailey Chongqing. He charged directly towards Bailey Chongqing like a black sword. Bailey Chongqing put away his inner thoughts. After being able to come this far and feeling the power of Ypsilon, he had an idea are kings, princes, generals, and ministers of different species? Perhaps Bailey Chongqing can also go. Take advantage of this opportunity and use both fists to build a career. He crossed his arms, and his arms swelled up quickly. His arms were obviously 1 or 2 times thicker than those of ordinary people. When he activated his ability, he almost looked like a huge King Kong ape. A terrifying black aura rose from his body. The power he was most proud of came from his physique that had been tempered by a special forces member and his unparalleled wrist strength. Chongwan came close. Bailey Chongqing raised his iron fist and slammed forward fiercely. This punch caused a sonic boom. The air was compressed, and a roar that could shatter one's eardrums was emitted. The shock wave that spread out instantly cleared the area in front. However, Chongwan, who was standing in front of him, suddenly twisted his body in midair like a snake, removing the force of Bailey Chongqing's attack. Then he coiled like a snake and suddenly tightened like a spring, shooting forward like a sharp sword. Puff! Bailey Chongqing's punch, which was full of murderous intent, was easily neutralized by Chongwan. He felt a chill on his chest, and when he looked down, he saw a huge hole in his chest. His entire chest cavity was hollowed out. Chongwan's body appeared behind him, and the blurry light and shadow flashed so quickly, as if a slender black snake suddenly turned into a human being. Bailey Chongqing defeated. Yang Xinxin's second match was against an old acquaintance, Newton from the Columbia Natural Science Association, whose real name was Isaac Bruto. I really don't know if it's a coincidence that her opponents twice in a row were both from Columbia, but it doesn't matter. In such a trial, no matter who your opponent is, you must kill him. Yang Xinxin made up her mind from the beginning to go all the way and see what this so-called trial of God-level civilization was all about. Unless the person she met was Zhang Yi, no one was worth keeping. Even for good sisters like Lu Karen and Zhou Qir, she would not show any mercy when it was time to kill them. However, it is likely that several of her sisters have been eliminated in the first round. Yang Xia and Zhou Qir are both users with auxiliary abilities and are not good at fighting, so it is indeed difficult for them to continue moving forward. As for Lu Karen, it's hard to say. Yang Xinxin's enemy is Newton. When Newton saw Yang Xinxin, he looked at his right hand helplessly. His wife is gone. Newton, who is used to fighting as a couple, will lose his atheist canon and his combat capability will decline a lot. But what left him speechless was that the manager judged that the two of them were individuals with independent consciousness, which meant that his wife had to face an opponent. Who could that person be? The time goes back a few minutes. Fatty Su never thought that he could enter the third trial, but when he learned that this was a battle level, he basically decided to lie down and go back to watch the fun. But when he entered the battlefield, he didn't see any opponents. On the ground in front of him lay a huge cannon. Back to the battlefield between Yang Xinxin and Newton, the two discovered each other. In fact, they are both well known to each other. Before the end of the world, Newton was a famous professor of physics in the scientific community. Yang Xinxin is a well-known genius and a world-class hacker. Both of them are members of the Mensa Club. It was an association founded in Britannia in 1946, which invited the world's top high IQ talents to join, and the admission standards were extremely strict. Both geniuses are members of the association. At this time, the two of them were looking at each other from a very long distance. Newton, he doesn't have his own cannon, so he lost the ability to fight at a distance. According to the intelligence obtained from the battle in Tianhai City, his ability is Newton's 3 laws, and he tends to be a rule-based ability user. He is best at defensive counterattacks. Because he is overly dependent on his wife, atheist, his combat capability is not very strong at this time. Yang Xinxin calmly analyzed her opponent. Newton did the same thing. Yang Xinxin, Chaos's think tank. She rarely appears on the front battlefield, and not much information is leaked. We know that she can materialize an angel-like puppet as an attack method. The target shot by her arrows can be controlled by her. However, his intelligence system called up the data of Yang Xinxin's arrows during the battle against Loradek. Judging from their speed, under normal circumstances, it would not be so easy to miss a move if he concentrated fully. After two people analyzed it, they came to the same conclusion. The opponent was not a threat to him, but he also lacked the means to defeat him with one fatal blow. It was at this time that Yang Xinxin chose to take the initiative into her own hands. She sent a voice message to Newton. "Goodbye, Mr. Bruto. I never thought we would become each other's opponents. We all know that it is not easy to kill each other head-on with our abilities. So, why don't we use the Mensa method to decide who will advance to the next round? What do you think?" Yang Xinxin made the invitation. The Mensa Club is a gathering of geniuses. Everyone here is very proud of their high IQ. So when they get together, they play some intellectual games to compete with each other. It was difficult for Newton to refuse Yang Xinxin's invitation, because if he did, it would mean admitting that his wisdom was not as good as Yang Xinxin's. Moreover, at this time, Newton was not sure that he could defeat Yang Xinxin, whose ability was unknown, through force. "So, how do we decide the winners?" Newton asked. He didn't know Yang Xinxin's abilities, so he had to make sure the intellectual game he played was in his favor, or at least not put him at a disadvantage. Yang Xinxin looked at Newton and said, "If it was me who proposed the game, there would inevitably be the possibility of unfairness in it. And vice versa. The game must be fair, and cheating through abilities is absolutely impossible. So, how's the game going?" Yang Xinxin paused and said, "Let's use chess." Newton frowned slightly. In their gatherings, chess games were often played. What chess really tests is your computing power. The faster you calculate, and the more steps you calculate, the stronger your chess skills will be. Newton's chess skills are definitely among the best in the entire club, but he has never seen Yang Xinxin play chess. Because of her legs, Yang Xinxin once participated in an offline Mensa rally in the past. However, he agreed with what Yang Xinxin said. Because chess puts everything on the table, and there is no way to cheat through ability. The two agreed on the way to win, or lose the chess game. The two sides take turns to play first. To ensure fairness, one side wins when it leads by 2 games. If one player is always ahead in one round, the game will continue. Because whether you can maintain a high computing power all the time is also a test of your intelligence. The two found a clean table on the battlefield and then used 3D projection to create a chessboard. The chess pieces were also created by 3D projection and looked no different from real chess pieces. The two men sat down opposite each other and started fighting on the chessboard. The battlefield where Liang Yu was located was a huge volcano. Her opponent was a petite girl with a huge battle axe with a Chinese character on her back. Asgard's number 2, Loki Bullet Thomas. Facing the enemy in front of him, Liang Yu did not dare to be negligent in the slightest. He put his body in a posture of drawing the sword and slashing, pressed his right hand on the hilt, and began to accumulate his own energy. Bullet simply glanced at Liang Yu. She did not have a deep impression of the woman in front of her. After all, in the Huashu country's team, Liang Yu's strength is not obvious, and his strength is close to that of the Black Chariot. And Bullet's ability index is as high as 28,000 points. If it were in the outside world, Bullet could even kill Liang Yu instantly with just one axe. A guy with a knife? It's a weird weapon. It looks a lot like a Japanese samurai sword. Bullet looked at Liang Yu and began to measure her fighting ability. The human wisdom of her combat system reminded her. The weapon she used is the prototype of the samurai sword, a Tang sword from the Huashu kingdom. This is a heavier weapon, the craftsmanship is more complicated than the samurai sword, and the collision is more powerful. However, due to problems with the craftsmanship and materials, it has been gradually eliminated. Based on the state of her weapon and her body structure, she should be a close combat type. Bullet's mouth curled up into a crazy smile. A close combat expert? That's great. Because she is Bullet, and she is also a madman who likes to kill enemies with a huge-shaped battle axe. Let's fight. As soon as she finished speaking, she leaped into the air like a cannonball, passed through the huge volcano, and fell towards Liang Yu. She raised her arms high with a huge battle axe with the word on it and smashed it hard at Liang Yu. Liang Yu clenched Longming in her right hand. From the opponent's huge and heavy battle axe with the Chinese character on it, She knew that Belit was a power-type alien warrior. Clang! Long Ming was suddenly pulled out from the scabbard, and the black energy that had accumulated for a long time burst out. A black blade light rose into the sky, like a dragon released from the scabbard. The shaped battle axe smashed down fiercely, and the blood-colored energy was like a tide, with astonishing murderous intent, colliding with the black dragon. Boom! The powerful energy collision caused the volcano below to erupt even more violently. Large amounts of magma and volcanic ash rushed into the sky, like gorgeous fireworks. With just one strike, it was difficult to tell who was stronger in the collision of power between the two. After all, under the suppression of the administrator, the ability levels of all the trial participants here were suppressed to the same level. A simple clash of superpowers cannot determine which is better. So for these two aliens who are both mainly good at melee combat, the key to determining their victory or defeat is actual combat experience and the difference in skills.